Cricket is my passion and I cannot avoid it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cricket Unplugged. Today I have a very, very special friend. In fact, a guest who is all the way from Australia. When he started playing ODI cricket, he changed the way ODI cricket played. He used to dance down the track to fast bowlers. He used to make fielding look literally easy. In fact, fielding attacking. He is none other than Dino Jones, Professor Dean Jones. Welcome, Dino.
Hi, Anis. How are you, bud? Good, very good introduction. I sent you that introduction and you read it beautifully. Well done.
How is it in
very
Australia?
nice, lovely.
How is it in Australia?
I live in Victoria. We've got live sport being played, which is great. Our number one sport is AFL, and they're using what we call the hubs or pods, and they're moving them up in Queensland and New South Wales, and the ratings has been massive. But there's only a little bit of crowds in Queensland and WA, but we're starting to get there. They're all left. They're all left Victoria, or all the sporting teams, because of it. Victoria's under the pump at the moment. We're having a little second wave at the moment. I think we had 250 cases today. But overall, we've only had 200 deaths. I know that sounds bad, but in collection to other countries in the world, we've done pretty well to try. We are an island, but try to downplay it. But some of the people have been a little bit naughty, haven't been isolating properly. So everyone's got to wear a mask now, and all that's compulsory, $200 fine. Or if you go into another state, it's a $10,000 fine. So, or 6 months jail. So it's a pretty serious situation here, as it is around the world. But we're coping. But it's good to see cricket being played now in England. And hopefully we'll start to get some cricket, maybe the UAE with the IPL coming up and all that type of stuff. So gradually the borders are starting to open a little.
Good. We sincerely hope, all over the world, things get better and we can see not only cricket, but normal life returning.
Yeah, whatever normal life is, it's been sad, hasn't it? What's been happened, and quicker we get a vaccine for it, the better. But in a way, and if you're a cricketer today or a coach, this is the time to really look back at your career right now. When things get better, how can I improve physically, technically, mentally, strategically? How do I get the best out of myself? Now, we've had a very full last few years of cricket being played everywhere. Hardly anyone's had a rest. And the players have been screaming for a bit of a break. Well, they've had their break, and I hope they've used this break to get over any injuries or niggles that they've got, and to come back full and better. But they have to learn to live in the hub life and be disciplined to do the right thing for everyone in the teams. Because if you don't have discipline, you don't have freedom. And if you want freedom, discipline comes along with it. So it'll be interesting to see how teams will play with the new COVID rules and all that type of stuff in the not too distant future.
Well, words of wisdom from Professor Dino. I introduced him about his one-day cricket, the way he played his one-day cricket, but he was a classical test batsman too. He has the highest for his Victoria, scoring 334, a triple 100, has an average of 46. And why shouldn't I talk about the test match, that fifth test match, where in Madras during those times, now Chennai, you scored your double 100. Tell us something about that innings, Dino.
Well, Anis, 2 years earlier, I played against the West Indies for the first time, and in the West Indies. And they literally smashed me up physically, mentally, technically, the whole lot. And I was a complete mess. If you're looking for 1,000 piece pixel picture, and I was just a puzzle, I was that. I was 1,000 pieces, and I had to literally put myself back together again. And I went back home and I faced thousands upon thousands of balls of indoor nets with the ball going 150 kilometres an hour at my face and my body. And then I knocked back to go on the Rebel Tour, $200,000 tax-free. for a boy that's 24 years of age, and you could buy a house in the best suburb of Melbourne for $200,000, I can assure you. And now they're worth, you know, minimum. And some of the homes in Toorak is worth $5 to $7 million now. So I knocked all that back, and it's because I wanted to play for Australia. Because if we went on the Rebel Tour, I would never have be able to play for Australia, because they said big band for life. And of course, I didn't get picked for England in '85, and then the Indian match. The Indians come up, and I've been preparing for the short stuff and all that, and now I'm about to go to India, hot as hell, and the ball's going to turn square on the front foot. A completely different mindset of how to play the spinners compared to the quicks. You see, you need to have the physical courage to play against the West Indians, all the Pakistani bowlers who bowl, you know, nearly 150. But when you play against great spinners, you need to have the mental courage and have courage in your own ability to use your feet, hit a guy over the top, move the bat pad out to extra cover, have the courage to hit one over the leg side, move that bat pad out. So you've got to be able to maneuver. You're playing chess with the bowler and moving his fieldsman around. And I had to quickly adapt to that. And I was lucky enough to I sent a letter to Sir Donald Bradman before I left to India. And he told me to go and see Lindsay Hassett. And Lindsay Hassett was a great player. He said he was the best player of spin he ever saw. And Lindsay captained Australia and Victoria, and he was a great player of spin. And he literally told me this. He was having a scotch at this, and he said, the only best way to play spin is that when they toss it up, you use your feet and hit it on the full or the half volley. If not, play it off the back foot. Now, that sounds really simple in terms. And I said, it's not that simple. Yes, it is. Go get me a drink. So I come back with a drink for him, put it down, and he said, that's how you play spin. It's about reading of length. And all the great players, the Laras, the Tendulkars, the Dravids, all the great players of spin, read length better than most. And that was my attacking way. And I went to India and played that. My very first run, I think, in the Tide Test score, my 200, I used my feet to Ravi Shastri and hit it to mid-off for one. And that was my technique. I was going to use my feet. And I was consistent and disciplined to stick with that game plan. And when I got to 100, it was my first test 100. It was really hot, 45 degrees. You've been there, Madras. It's just shocking heat. My mind was saying, there's a big 200 here. Now, why? It's my third test match ever. And all of a sudden, I went on to score 200. But that was my Mount Everest moment. In other words, once I climbed that, once I got that score, then I realised I could play international cricket. But every player's got to do that. It might be their 10th test or their 15th one-dayer or their 15th T20 international. But you've got to find that Mount Everest moment for me. And for me personally, and also for the team, that was our Mount Everest moment, because we were, I think, in the test match, you might be able to prove it differently, Anis. I think they had over 500 test matches in the Indian team, and we only had 160, 170 of them, and Alan Border had 75 tests. All of us only played 5, 6, 3 test matches. So collectively as a unit, we started to play well. And from that actually Thai test tour, if you want to say that, we learned how to play in the subcontinent. We learned to cope with the heat. We learned to play with a shirt that's completely dripping with sweat, or running with your feet, with your boots feels like full of water, and that helped us in the World Cup the following year. But it was a big moment for me, and sadly, in a way, I wish I had my dad there, who was my mentor, and of course, I was just being married with my wife and all those type of things. But back then we didn't get those luxuries like the players of today get. And I just wish some of those people there with me to actually enjoy the moment, because it was a big moment for me. And I think it is still the highest score by an Australian in Test cricket in India.
So about that test match, I remember, and you rightly said that if you want to play the spinners, you got to use your feet and read the length properly, or you're going on the back foot, you make sure that you play the ball well. And I very well remember the sapping hit of Chennai, rather Madras during those times. The way you played Indian spinners, Maninder Singh, Ravi Shastri, Yadav. That was a special innings, and Bobby Simpson went on to say that it was one of the best innings played by an Aussie.
Yeah, it was very nice words of that. But you know, Meninda was the best left-arm spinner I ever faced. He just was a magician. Later on in life, he got the yips a bit. He couldn't land them as good. I really enjoyed his company. Meninda, really good quality bowler. Yadav and Ravi, of course, in there as well. And yeah, it was a big moment for everyone. And then, of course, getting into the last day, no team has ever, the history, the stats, the analytics said no team has chased 348 on the last day or 347 to win a test match. Well, 348 to win a test match, and they didn't get them. It was 347. They were a bit short, but I don't know whether or not, I think Meninda might have got a good inside edge. It wasn't out, but there's a few funny decisions going on the last day. There's some good ones and there's some bad ones, but at the end of the day, you talk about the great relationship between India and Australia. That started then, because at the end of that match, both captains and players, we got together. Where did we go? I think Bangalore, I think we went to. No, Hyderabad. We went to Hyderabad and we got together, had a few drinks and enjoyed each other's company. And from that, the legacy of that tour is Australia and India started to get on famously well and become really good mates. Because I'll say this, Anis, I spoke to, I won't mention names, but I spoke to some of the greats of Indian cricket. They said, don't go to India. It's a shocking place. You won't like it. It'll be awful. And we make sure with Bob Simpson and Alan Border said, we're going to enjoy the culture. We're going to enjoy the food. We're going to enjoy the people. And we're just going to have some fun. We're going to, and this is a young team and we'll get together. We used to room together. They don't do that now, of course. And that's basically what we did, and get the chances to play against Gavaskar. And the ball was spinning this far. And to watch Sonny Gavaskar scored 90 on the last day off a pitch that was turning square, and he was still hitting against the spin of Ray Bright, left arm orthodox. And I was watching how he never played across the line. And I'm watching him at cover going, oh, he's amazing. How does he keep hitting the ball through mid-wicket against the spin? But it was his technique. And I was watching him like a hawk. So all these little things we'd learned along the way, we must have played about, it was a 3.5-month tour for 3 tests and 4 or 5 one-dayers. That's all. That normally is done in a 6-week tour today. But we got to play against teams in Gwalior. I think we played Delhi Railway second 11 twice. We played everyone right throughout the whole. But it was great to learn how to play spin. And it was our first entree on what India life and playing cricket in India is all about. And you ask any of the players that played in our team, they love going back to India since then from 1986. It was a great time. Great time.
But anytime during that test match, you felt that you're going to lose it when Ravi Shastri was going well. In fact, I remember he used to bounce down the track and lift Matthews over the mid-wicket for 6s.
Yeah.
You think that, we've done so much, but we've lost it. And then the LBW happened.
Yeah, once he hit that 6, a good point. Once he hit that 6, I thought we're done. We were done. And then he took the single, and that's one area, and I've often had a good talk to Ravi over a few refreshments. And I said, Ravi, you should never have taken that single because it's your responsibility to get you guys home. And because they were playing catch up all the way, and to get it to a tie, they would have taken that before the game even started or before that day started. So it was a great comeback for them. They played amazingly well. And then Gavaskar and these guys actually played out of the skin. You don't often see Sonny hitting 6s down the ground and all this type of stuff. And it was a different attitude by Kapil Dev's team at the time. But interestingly, there are 2 scoreboards at Madras, at Chennai. One of them is the ex-MCG scoreboard. I don't know if you know that. When they took the scoreboard down, they sent it to India, to Madras, and they put the electronic one up at the MCG. Anyway, I'm looking at both scoreboards, and one said that we're in front by 1, and the other one says we're not. So I was the positive person. I'm always half full. I always thought anyway, the wicket got taken, and I thought we've won the game. So we're all running off the ground. And I said, what a great win. And someone said, I think Greg Matthews said, no, it wasn't. And it's a tie. It says, it can't be. And then Bruce Reid ran in and says, is that a draw? And Craig McDermott said, what are we celebrating for? We lost it. I said, what are you doing, you stupid idiot? How can we lose the game? So we had 4 guys with 4 different results. So it turned out to be a tie. It was funny, in this COVID time, I've gone through, your old stuff a little bit just to list and manage, and see what you've got and all that. And I've actually found for the first time the Man of the Match trophy. I've never seen it before. I can't remember. I didn't think I even got one, but I got a beautiful engraved plate, silver plate, was given to me by the BCCI. So I'm quite happy that I found it. I didn't know I had it, and I stuck it away somewhere in one of the boxes. And over the years, cricketers don't tend to look at that stuff, and we had a bit of time to do so. And I'm really happy that I brought it home. It was cool. It was really cool.
Do you remember the umpire who gave the last decision?
Raju?
Yes. He's coming the history too.
Sadly, he just passed away, wasn't it? Earlier this year. I interviewed him for Star Sports, and I asked him, Raju, I said, sir, it was out, wasn't it? Oh, yes, it was out. I'm so not really, because I swear I heard an inside edge from deep it off. But look, and to this day, I don't think he never got a test match again after that, or a one day out. I don't think he never did. But I don't think the Indian players were too happy with what went on. But come on, it was great for the game. And geez, it went around the world in a heartbeat. There's been one tied test, of course, in 1961, and then we had another one. I'm fortunate enough to play in a tied test. I played in a tie in a one-day international against the West Indians at the MCG. I played in a tied match against New Zealand in a first-class match, and I've also played in a tie in a domestic one-day match in Victoria against New South Wales. So I don't know what it is with ties. We don't seem to lose them, but we don't seem to win them either. So one of those things.
I think you're lucky. You should ask Williamson this question about a tied thing.
One little boundary, wasn't it? And don't we Australians give the Kiwis something about that? One little boundary. Stupid rule, wasn't it? Just a stupid rule.
Tell us something about your 184 against England in the Ashes, where you all went on to win the Ashes 2-1.
Yeah, rightly or wrongly, we as cricketers in Australia actually, you're rated what you do against England at that time. It's not what you do against India. It's not what you do against the West Indies. What you do against England. And that was my first 100 I got on Australian soil. I think I'm one of 9 players of both teams in the history of the Ashes to actually score 2 500 series, 2 500 runs in a series. I think 5 of them are Australian and 4 of them are English over the history since 1877. So it's something special to get one at home. And also the fact that my dad was there and my family was there, because they hadn't seen me score the 200 against India before that. So it was nice. My life, it's interesting that back then, what you did in India, it didn't really matter too much to the Aussie fans. It didn't matter much to Kerry Packer, who owned Channel 9. Even to this day, when we won the World Cup in 1987, Kerry Packer didn't take the telecast. He put an old movie on. He didn't watch Australia play against England at Kolkata in front of 120,000 people. It's what you do at home. And sadly, it's changed now, thank God. But back then, it was a different aspect shown by other people. But it was a nice to get 180, but it was a draw. Didn't really matter. When you look back in my career, people talk about hundreds and all this. I don't. And I talk about Ashes wins. Talk about World Cup wins. in AFL football, Aussie rules football, they talk about all the great footballers and they say how many premierships you won. We don't care how many games you won or how many goals you kicked or what have you won. That's our culture in Australia. What have you won? Forget how many gold medals you've won. What have you won? And that is what we look at a little bit more. We don't care about centuries that much, but I was lucky enough to get a few. But I'm so proud of won the Ashes twice and won a World Cup. They're bloody hard to win. They're bloody hard to win.
So you were mentioning that during those days that people were saying how many runs you scored against England and how many wins you all had against England. What is that rivalry? We all know about the Ashes. They say it's bigger than the India-Pakistan rivalry. So what is that gets the best out of an Aussie or a player has been said as a hero or a villain if he performs or if he doesn't perform in Ashes?
Yeah, it's the first ever rivalry in sport, I think, between the two. I'll give you something a little bit. Oh, here we go. That's what we played for. Look at the size of it. It's not much at all, is it? It's ridiculous. So it's one of those things that I just feel that what it is. Not a lot of people might know this. It's a perfume urn. That's what it is. It was given to Ivo Bligh, the captain of England, back in 1880 by Florence Morphy. And they end up, people don't understand the Ashes is actually a love story about different classes. It's about Lord Ivo Bligh. He is a big name, obviously, in England. And Florence Morphy, she was an Irish woman living in Australia, looking after some children in a place not too far down the road from my place in Sunbury. And he wanted a memento of their friendship that they had for 3 weeks when the England team stayed there in 1877. And that's what he gave her. She gave him. It was that. And of course, the Australians beat England, I think, in 1880 or something, or 1878 or something. And they put the Ashes in the urn. Now, that was for a reason, is to get rid of bad luck. That's what they do. If something happened bad to you, you had to put it in an urn and bury it. That was their thing back then, because England should never get beaten by Australia. And he got the ashes of the bales, or the tea ladies burnt, put it in. He said, I'll bury it tomorrow. But what people didn't understand, then the very next day, he asked his parents to marry this commoner, this woman from Ireland. And they said no. He said, well, I am. And he hopped on a boat the very next 2 days later, a boat called the Peshawar, and went across. Can you believe it? Just off the coast of Colombo, the boat was shipwrecked, had a head-on collision, and they literally almost swam to Colombo off the coast of Sri Lanka. And then he caught another boat down to Australia and then proposed, and he still had the urn. And of course, the next time the England team came down there a few months later, met up with Ivo Bligh, and they won their first game at the MCG, and that started the Ashes thing. And people think it's about England and Australia classes, the prisoners, and all that type of stuff. Really, it's not about that. It's actually a love story between a guy in aristocracy, a lord, with a commoner, a woman. And I'm happy and very happy for years to come. And what Florence Morphy actually did later in life, Ines, was the fact that their home back in England, they used as a hospital for the First World War, for all the patients coming back and soldiers to heal in there. And for all her wonderful nursing work that she did, the Queen, or the King back then, gave her a knighthood, a dame. And in the end, she was actually higher than what Ivo Bligh was in aristocracy, for all their wonderful good work. It's an amazing story, but I'm getting off track on what the Ashes is about, but that's basically it. And as a cricketer, you're governed about, you do well in an Australian team, win the Ashes, you've got to spot that team for the next 12 months. You have got that job. So, you're up against, we play hard. My time of playing against guys like Botham and Gower and all these guys, and Gadding and Gooch, and Angus Fraser and Alex Stewart and all these guys. And at the end of it, the guys just sit in and have a drink together and enjoy each other's company. But when we go the next day and we put our baggy green cap on, it's on for young and old again. But I think that's been surpassed, though, Vanessa. I've been lucky enough to commentate on India and Pakistan matches. That's way bigger than the Ashes now. That's gone to another level now, and it's watched by more people. But I think the Indians and every other cricketing country are upset that we've got such a long history and tradition of Ashes cricket. It's been a big part of my life, and I'm so glad to be part of three Ashes winning series. That's really cool.
Generally, Australia has had the wood over England in a Ashes series, whether it has been Alderman or Steve Waugh. There are many players who have done well from the Aussie side, who've dominated English. What is that? Because there was a time England could hardly win till Kevin Peterson won it for them in '85.
And he's South African now. Let's get this right. No, he's not even English. Right now, England are going around the world trying to get cast-offs. The Jofra Archer. They'll find some other guy coming out of Pakistan or India or somewhere to go and play for them again. Oh, they're not bad. Let's look what England have done over the years. When they try to colonise the world, what's the first thing they used to do? When they get to a country, they built a fort. They built a castle. This is what they did. And it's the same thing they do in cricket. The first thing they do on the first day is not try to lose it. They defend. And once they got that territory, then they'll worry about expanding from there. Australians don't do that. We try to win off the first ball. And, in my times recently, you have Michael Slater and these guys. If you bowl a bad ball first ball, it's going for 4 or 6. This is the attitude that we have. We try to win the game from the very first day and get on top. And that's the way I played my one-day cricket. Get on top of them straight away. Let them know you're there, and then let your ability take over from them, and not just get in there and go blah, 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 and we'll wait. No, we're not into that. We've never played like that, and I think that's the way I think you have to play your cricket. India do that now. Pakistan are learning to do that now a little bit, particularly in their T20 teams now. So that's the way I think teams have got to do well. And it's so important to have, then we had guys like Langer and Hayden, particularly Haydos. You bowl a short ball, gets whacked for 6 first over. We try to win the very game, get people or get teams upset right from the get-go. Let them know you're playing against us and you bowl a bag one, whether it's the first over or the last over. It's going to be hit for 6 or 4, and that's the way we like to play.
Very well said. They know that the way Australia play, they want to win it from ball one. They are not afraid. They don't get buckled down.
No.
Right.
That's just the way we're brought up. It's in our DNA.
I want to ask about the '87 World Cup. Nobody can forget that World Cup, and it was Australia's first World Cup win. Tell us something about that World Cup experience in India and Pakistan.
Well, it was an amazing tour. Just to give you the background for the Australians first up, we lost our last 5 games coming into that World Cup. But Bob Simpson and Alan Border starting to get guys. I started to bat at 3, and you got Boone and Marsh at the top, and you got Steve Waugh and Simon O'Donnell were starting to bowl these change-up balls, the balls at the back of the hand. And we used our spinners a lot more aggressively. And we were the best fielding team. Our last line of defence is our fielding. And if we fielded really well, we're going to win. And we believed back then we had these analytics when we just started to touch analytics. If you score the most singles, you're going to win most games. And that's what we tried to do. Get rid of the dot balls, get a lot of ones and work it from there. And we had a game plan. And it was just absolutely fabulous. It got to we just had the Tide Test in Madras, and it all started in our very first game against India. And I was batting, we batted first, and I was facing Maninder Singh, and I went down the pitch and I hit one straight over the head. and Ravi Shastri was on mid-off, and he was running around, and he dived, and the ball went over his arm, and it went past the rope by 1.5 meters. And sure enough, what happened is that Ravi said it was 4. And I said to Dickie Bird, hang on, that's not right. It's right in front of our team. You know it carried for 6. And Dickie says, you have to take the word of the fieldsman. He said, oh, it really upset me. So about 3 overs later, I got out. So I walked off the ground and I ran into the match referee straight away with my pads on. His name was Hanif Mohammed. 499 3/4 he got, his highest score in first-class cricket. Got run out, didn't he? Trying to get 500. Anyway, I said to him, that was the 6. He said, we'll sort it out at the end. Don't get upset. We'll sort it out at the end of the innings. I said, okay. But at the end of the innings, I went and saw, with Alan Crompton, our manager, Dickie Bird. And Dickie Bird said, I'll go in and speak to the player again. I said, Dickie, you know it was 6. So we made 269. And we walked in there, and Dickie said to Ravi, I'm about to look in the OB van. Do you know if it was 6 to save me some time? Because if it was, this tournament's going to be a tough one for you. I'll make sure of it. Oh, Dickie, don't let him have it. You know, big Ravi booming voice. Let him have it. It was 6, no problem. So they changed the score to 271. And what happened? When the score's on 270, I think Steve Waugh bowled the ball. I can't remember. Meninda, I think it was, hit it to me mid-on.
Maninder Singh. Again, Maninder Singh.
Maninder Singh, I picked the ball up and threw the stumps down, and we ran them out, and we won by 1 run. And it set up our whole tournament from there. We were playing reverse sweeps. We were doing that. Just to let your viewers know a little bit what happened. It was the last World Cup in whites. There was no leg side wides. You could have 7 guys on the leg side if you wanted to. You could bowl 4 bounces and over if you wanted to on these massive grounds. There's no short grounds like they are now. So, you know, we end up getting into what we all thought, that they're all hoping India versus Pakistan final was all being set up for that. So we technically should have been playing India at Bombay, but they changed. They sent us to Pakistan to play against Pakistan at Lahore, and of course England had to play India at Mumbai. So we got over there, and I tell you what, to beat Pakistan in Pakistan was our first ever win to beat Pakistan in Pakistan, and we end up winning it pretty easily in the end. But I'll never forget this, and this. We'd come off the ground, and we're all happy. We actually got the World Cup final. How did that happen? Because we were ranked and rated as the worst team in that World Cup that year. That's how much people know. Excuse me. So it got to a stage where our manager said, pack your bags. We're worried about the crowd. We've got a plane organised. Get ready now. And I've got this photo. I haven't got it here. It's down the other end of the house. Boone, Border, War, and myself were still wearing our spikes on the plane when we flew from Lahore to Calcutta. Amazing win. And, of course, we beat England, and the rest is history.
Yes.
Sorry, but it was... and, you know, we only won $900.
Correct. Because I believe it was Imran Khan's last so-called match, and the crowd was emotional about it. They were expecting Pakistan to win, but that's the way we sometimes react to losses. So now about the finals. We all know what happened in the final. It was a close final, even though Australia were always ahead. But there was a time when Defritis probably went after the bowling. They came back again. But before that, Mike Garing did something to Alan Border. Can you tell our viewers?
We reverse swept Alan Border and got out. But the fact was that he reversed Tim May in that earlier.
Okay.
And he got 2 boundaries from that anyway. So I don't know why people say, that he should get heat for that. It's just one thing that happened and he got out. It did change the momentum of that. We also got Gooch, who swept the living daylights out of India in Mumbai, got a great 100 Simon O'Donnell got Gooch out for 30, bowled a brilliant spell. I think he's 1 for 32, and he got Gooch out. It's a bit of a sweet and sour moment for us, and it's because I remember we won the match. I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Natural that Robert Redford was in, about an old baseballer, 40 years of age, hits a home run in the World Series for them to win. It was a lovely movie, and we were the first team to actually start running around the ground. And 120,000 people were there. It was an amazing time, and the lights was getting dark, and the lights were really taking effect. And as we're running around the ground, these fireworks are all going off. And I yelled out to David Boone. I said to Bernie, I said, "Are we in the movie The Natural? Because this doesn't feel right. We thought we were in Hollywood or a big Bollywood, bonanza type thing." We got into the dressing room, and it's massive rooms they are in Kolkata at Eden Gardens, and it was silence. We only had 14 players in the team back then, and manager, coach, physio, and that's it. Now they have about 25 staff. Ridiculous now. So there's silence in the dressing room where people are just taking the boots off. And then Jeff Marsh said, "What the bloody hell have we just done?" And it was just a moment. I'll never forget that. We've become a World Cup champion. And straight after that, we knew we were in some trouble, because cricket's one thing, life is another. And there I was I was in the showers with Simon O'Donnell, and he was crying. And I said, "What's wrong, mate?" And he said, "Something's wrong there, and I don't know what it is." And he showed me his rib cage, and he had these 5 lumps, big lumps across his ribs. And I didn't think much of it at the time. He said, "Oh, you'd be right. I thought he'd literally been hit by the West Indians. Have you been hit there or something in the nets?" Or I said, "No, they've just come up over the last couple of weeks, and I haven't said anything, but I've spoken to Errol and the doctor, and I've got to go and see people when I get home straight away." Well, when we got home, I picked up the paper the very next day, and there it is. Simon O'Donnell has lymphoma, leukemia, cancer, and we expected to lose his life within the next month. And it was just like we'd gone from that high to one of your teammates could pass away now. And fortunately enough, he didn't, but it wrecked his career pretty much, because they took ribs out, and he was never quite the same after that. But it was a roller coaster of emotions right throughout the whole tournament. We had a plan. We had the discipline to stick to that plan. By God, we were fit. We prided our fielding. Alan Board hit the stumps how many times all the time they're throwing. We hardly dropped a catch. We were so good in the field, and we knew it. And we got $900 prize money each. Now that's $350,000 US each. You almost buy Tasmania for that now. But it was interesting, and it's that I actually sent a letter off to the ICC 18 months ago, and to the Cricket Australia, saying that we never got a medal, nothing, just a pat on the back, and they all thought we got medals, and it came back that they struck up a gold medal, and they realised the 75, 79 teams, 83, 87, 92 and 95. So the medals for the players basically started from 1999 onwards, but they forgot about the rest. So the ICC, thankfully, have got medals struck up, and we did a big presentation with the Australian cricket team. And I haven't got it here; it's in the other room, but I'm proud of it. We've got a beautiful, big Olympic-sized gold medal, and we're World Cup champions. But that was 18 months ago, and that's the first time in 32 years that the team got back together again. How stupid's that? We got to protect our past and our traditions of the game, and the past players and the past greats. It's all very well to be like Tendulkar and make hundreds and hundreds of centuries and do all that type of stuff. But you ask Sajan Tendulkar, what's one of the greatest things he's ever done? Won a World Cup. won a World Cup. It's one of the greatest things he's ever done. And we haven't quite actually helped a lot of our teams in the past to actually look after the teams, not the players, but look after the teams. And that's our history. And we've got to make sure we look after it.
Yeah, that was history made by Border and his team. But then in the 92 World Cup, colored clothing, Australia were the host along with New Zealand. What happened in that World Cup? And in the first match, you all went to New Zealand, you all lost. And then things absolutely went haywire except for the win against India, which was a close one. What happened in the World Cup?
Well, we played against India in a 4-test series. Now, after the last test, which was in Perth, India went across to the East Coast and started to play some practice games. We are defending World Cup champions. We're the hosts. So they flew us from Perth, which is 5 hours back to Melbourne, pick up our yellow gear, literally that night fly into Auckland, practice the next day, and we played the first game. We had one practice session. We didn't have any matches. We've come off a test series and we get smashed. The very next day we flew into Sydney, and we had to play against South Africa, who have been eating rocks for 30 odd years. That's their first game, World Cup game. And they just smashed us up. So, and also the fact that we've been changing our batting order around. And it got to a stage where we went very next day after that, we trained the next day and we had to play against India. And I'll never forget it. The night before the match, I asked Bob Simpson, our team meeting, which we're always allowed to be open and opinionated, but make sure you back it up with stats. I said, I've been batting at 5 and 4. Booney's been here. Tom Moody's been out the batting. We're all mucking around. Why have we changed our batting order? With this batting order of Boone and Marsh, Jones at 3, Allen Border at 4, Steve Waugh 5, whatever. We've won 84% of our games in the last 2 years. Why are we changing it? And Bob Simpson said, we're predictable. I said, Bob, we're predictable at winning. Why are we changing? It's not whether I should be batting 3. It's about us as a team of delivering it the right way. He said, no, you'll be batting down the order. And I looked across to Alan Border and I said, AB, you're the captain. Fix the batting order up, or we're just going to have these inconsistent results. And it's Bob, you're the coach. We never got a practice game. We've flown all around from Perth to Melbourne to Auckland to Sydney to Brisbane within 7 days or eight days, hardly with a day off. And we're tired. And we're coming into our third game, and it's a must-win game. AB, you've got to fix the batting order up, or we're in a lot of trouble. And at the end of the meeting, Bob Simpson said to me, "This will be the end of your career." I said, "Oh, don't worry about it." Well, I went anyway. Alan Border says, "No, we'll go back to bat. We'll bat at number 3." And this is the first time I never wore my Australian cap. I never wore my Australian cap when I batted. And I said, right, I'm taking them on, and Yavagal bowled one, and I think it was the second ball I hit him straight over his head into the bar, and I said, game on, let's play. And we should have won a lot easier than what they did, but it got down to Steve Waugh dropping a catch on the boundary and throwing it in. David Boone was the wicket keeper because Ian Healy pulled his hamstring, and then they went on to win the World Cup. All because of that washout in Adelaide.
Because of that washout, even if you had lost to West Indies, you would have made it to the next round?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's bizarre. But it comes down to, mate, we were so worried about making sure we have a great World Cup, making sure that India and England and West Indies are well looked after. They forgot about us, the home team. Yeah. Like the amount of flying that we did, it's no excuse. We weren't good enough for them. I'll put my hands up there, all that. But we didn't make it easy for ourselves. God, that's it. Our preparation before that World Cup was just horrendous. Like in the 87 World Cup, we had 3-4 practice matches, and we trained in the heat for 2.5, 3 weeks in Madras before we won that one game against India because we were ready. We weren't ready at all when we started that World Cup. And when we paid the consequences for it.
Understand. But then, when we look at Australia's history, 96 they were runners-up, but after 99 they never looked back. bearing a blip in the 2011 World Cup and also the last World Cup. But they have always made it to the knockout. What is that makes Australia be so good compared to other teams? If you take out the records, they go on to win almost all the big games.
Yeah, we lose the close games and test matches, but we win the close games in one day, it seems. But by gee, we had some good players in the early 2000s from 1999 onwards. And it got pushed out to 15 players per squad. Let's take, for example, the 2007 World Cup played in Barbados against Sri Lanka. Do you know of the 4 players that missed out of that 15? The 4 players that did not get a game: Brad Hodge, Mitchell Johnson, Brad Haddon, and I think it might have been Shane Watson or something. Missed out. Those 4 guys couldn't get in the team. So well, we had some very, very good players, and more importantly, they learnt the stuff that we did in the 80s and 90s, and then we're going to put the foot down for longer. We're not sure. Our game plan was to hurt them in the first 15 overs. We peter along at 4.5 and over, 4 to 5 and over in the mids, but in the death overs, then we go hard again. Well, the Australians just went hard right from the get-go. Hayden and all these guys just went Gilly and all that type of stuff. I hope Gilly opened the batting and Mark Waugh opened the batting and up the top there, and then Ricky Ponting came along. Gee, good luck. Good luck with trying to beat those teams. And then McGrath and Wong were just something sensational. And you know, we had great death bowlers, great bowlers with the new ball. We hurt them with the new ball. We hurt them at the death. So, and Brett Lee was up there, was probably close to our best bowler with the ball, and knew how to reverse it at 100 miles an hour. Good luck trying to beat that team. Pretty close to the best ever one-day team ever of all time.
Spot on, Dino, because I remember the 2015 World Cup. Incidentally, I was there. And winning for Australia was like normal. And after the World Cup was won, the next day, they just came to the Melbourne Square for 15, 20 minutes. They were felicitated with a medal, and that's it. But especially in India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka, when we win a World Cup, it's a big, big thing. I mean, the players are felicitated. Nothing wrong in that. But in Australia, a win in a World Cup is like a walk in the park.
Yeah. I'm not trying to downgrade it at all. We've only got 23 million people here, for God's sake. And cricket's probably the 3rd or 4th most popular sport. Number 1 is fishing. Next one is AFL by miles. And then you've got netball, which has got the most registered members that play netball. Men and women play together, and women's. And then comes cricket. And then there's soccer. You know, our hockey, I think, is the 15th ranked sport, and we do very well at that. Because sport is in our culture. You go to school, learn what you have to do, and then part of that schooling is to learn to play within a team. Know your role, be disciplined, and then be coached in a way that to be aggressive and take them on. And we want to see a guy who can bowl at 100 miles an hour, because the easiest thing to teach Brett Lee is defense, and trying to bowl and get him straightened up and to bowl straight. We want to see guys hit it as far as they can with T20 cricket. The easiest thing to teach a kid is to play a forward defence. You can't teach a guy like Andre Russell that hits at 120 metres. That's just skill. It's something you can't teach. It comes from within. But we ask kids to, if you've got an arm, throw it as hard as you can. We want to show off in the field, show off your skills. If you can spin it, rip it 2 feet like Warney did, or Stu McGill, or whoever. And that's the way we play. Like, you get guys like Andrew Simons, who are amazing in the field and beautiful hitters of the ball. And we practice big hitting a lot more than most other countries do in the world. And we do our analytics on teams. We do our homework. And the biggest thing of all is that the coach has to sell the game plan. It's like you with, and this with Danube. I'm trying to sell Danube to all the future clients. This is our stuff. As a coach, I've got to sell the players the game plan. Once they agree to it, then they stick to it when under pressure. What is the game plan? We know this guy, Andre Russell, hits it for 6. hit his left boot, aim for his left boot, no matter what the situation is, hit his left boot or hit his left ear. That's what we're trying to do. And the players do that. And our attention to detail is massive. We do not leave any stone unturned about our opposition. And that's what we've done. And we're unbelievably fit. When I was coach of Afghanistan, I asked them, do you think you're good enough to beat India? And they all said, yes. I had an interpreter with their push. So I said, okay, tell me why India was number one team in the world. And I wrote it down, I think on one of my boards at the back, and we wrote all the things down. And I said, right, out of all these, which things do you think that your team is not doing? Do you think you're as fit as you could be? No. Do you think you could do this? And anyway, it got to a stage, so I showed him a video of Virat Kohli bench pressing 150 kilos. I said, can any of you do that? And they were just blown away. He does that? They said, yes, this is what he's doing. And you think you can beat him? You think you can beat these guys? You might get lucky one game, but you're not going to beat them over a period of time. So until you actually get your game up to their level, don't even bother opening your mouth. And I'll tell you what, they've changed Afghanistan, haven't they? They've improved massively over the last 2 or 3 years, but that's the difference with us. I compared our fat contents and our caliper tests and weight from the Afghanistan team, which I think you do 8 tests on the tricep, stomach, pecs, back of the arms. I think the Australians were round about average for the whole team was 55. Afghanistan's was 110. You can stop eating the rice. Stop eating the naan bread. You might have half a chance to start doing the proper. This day and age, they have to get fit. And I tell you, one kid's does it very well. Rashid Khan. You look at him; he is just rippling fit, and he's taken on board because the IPL experience, and he's really enhanced it, enjoyed it, and it's made him a better cricketer. They're starting to learn that they have to get themselves fit. But have a look how fit the Indian boys are. Amazingly fit. Oh, and that's the way the game has got to be. You get paid millions of bucks. If you can't do the running between the wickets and hit it for 6 at the end, don't bother coming. Go, I don't want you in my team. And that's the way it's got to be this day and age. You look at the way David Warner runs between the wickets from the first ball of a T20 match or a one-day international to the 40th or to the last 2 overs of T20. He's doing sub 5.5s running for a 2. That's 5.5 seconds. That's amazing pace. And then still able to hit it for 6, to have the strength to do that. These cricketers are fantastic today. Just brilliant to watch.
Right. We've had a wonderful conversation with Professor Dino. He's given us some lovely insights. And trust me, that's why he's also a very good coach for T20, for his franchise Islamabad when he was with them. I want to ask you now some quick fire questions. Let me put you in a spot. The best captain you have played under?
Alan Border.
Steve Waugh or Ricky Ponting? A better captain?
Statistically, I'd have to say Steve Waugh. World Cups. And he's got 77% strike rate as a captain. Interestingly, I think he was up to, did he do 80 odd games as captain for Australian Test cricket? But how's this and this? He only debuted 6 players, just 6 out of 80 Test matches. So when Michael Clarke, for example, took over, by the time Michael Clarke did his 20th game, I think as a Test captain, I think he debuted 32 players. So there's the difference just there, Steve Waugh had a very, very, very good cricket team over that time. And when he finished, that was it, he was done. Then Ricky Ponting had to reintroduce players and Michael Clarke had to reintroduce players again because everyone was retiring off. But I still think Alan Border's the godfather of Australian cricket. He taught them a game plan. He built the base. The Taj Mahal, and you're in business, the great buildings come about because they've got great foundations. And foundations in a team is about discipline. Know your role. Pick the right players and stick to your game plan. And that's what we've done over the years.
If you had to pick one bowler, you don't know how the wicket is going to behave. Will it be Shane Warne or McGrath?
Shane Warne.
Shane Warne.
Shane Warne, yeah. I never ever worried about Glenn McGrath when I faced him, so I didn't know what. But Warney, you know, won a World Cup, man of the match, so many wickets. He was not only just his batting, bowling, but his batting coming to play. He's a great slipper, and when people walk on the ground, I'm not taking anything away from Glenn McGrath because he was brilliant, but people walk a foot taller when Shane Warne's in the team. There's a big difference.
If you had to pick one fast bowler, Lily, Thompson, McGrath, or Stark?
Oh, it'll be Lily.
Dennis Lilly.
Lily, yeah. I remember when I was batting coach for the Australian cricket team, Shane Watson had to go in and he had to face Mitchell Stark and Mitchell Johnson and Pat Cummins in the nets on the pitches weren't great at the MCG practice wickets. I've never seen guys bowl as fast as that in my life. I thought, how could you get good practice out of that? Like poor old Shane, when he came out of the nets, was white as a ghost after it. See, this is the great thing about guys who bowled super fast. And Tomo did as well earlier. But when a guy bowls 150 clicks, 150 kilometres per hour, you have no idea how fast that is. If you stand at the bowler's end or where the umpire stands, and you watch these guys bowl, the pace and the sound, the sound of the ball sounds like a whistle, like an arrow going through the air. It is scary as hell. People think they can face 150 kilometres an hour. Trust me, you do not.
India playing Australia in this test series, which is happening by the end of the year. The scoreline, according to you, in whose favour?
Well, I'm hearing there'll be 2 tests in Adelaide and be one at Melbourne and one in Sydney. So, both teams are going to have about 28 players in quarantine, I'm hearing. They'll play a T20 series before the test series will start. So, I think Australia will beat you. I think Australia will win.
Scoreline?
There's not so many draws this day and age. I'll say 3-1.
To Australia.
But it'll be a lot closer than you think. But still 3-1.
With Warner and Smith back.
Of course. And don't forget Pat Cummins and all that other good boys, Mitchell Stark and these boys, and they're doing very well. It'll come down to the catching and how quickly the players will adapt. They're going to be put in the hub. We got hotel now at the ground. I don't know if you know this, and it's at the Adelaide Oval. So they'll be put in hubs there. Both teams. They've got enough rooms for both teams. Excuse me. And they'll use the nets, and no one's allowed in the ground at all. So they'll use the nets there and the ground outside it, which is the Adelaide #1 Oval, to use practice matches against both teams to try to get themselves ready for the test matches. So they'll charter flights in. So I think it'll cost about $3 million for a big charter flight to get the Indian boys in. But they'll bring in about 28 players because they have to bring in the T20 the test boys and also the ODI boys to play. So the Indians will be dying for some cricket because they normally play a lot of cricket. They've had a big break now. They would have had enough for staying at home. They want to get going.
One Pakistan player, the talent you've seen in so many years of PSL, where you feel that he is the best.
Well, I don't think Pakistan can win unless they have Shazil firing, left-hander. If they get him firing, Baba is great. He's the glue, Baba. But Baba needs to hit more 4s and 6s in the mids. So they got their bowling. They'll shut you down. But if they want to make scores of over 185, they've got to bring the heat. And the top order batsmen have got to be able to do that. And I think Shazil is one guy. If they got him going, I believe he's unbelievably fit now. He's just had his second child as well, I think. And I think they got the bowlers as well to shut teams down. So fielding's always a concern, but it's amazing when they concentrate, they know how to catch. and have a good team plan. But I think Bubba well led, but I think they're a very, very good cricket team. But I think they need all the great T20 teams have had a batsman who can belt the living daylights to bring an X factor to the game. And Sharjeel, like Stain bowled to him in the PSL, he hit Stain for 3 sixes in 1 over. He don't care. And if he gets firing and gets a bit of confidence early, they could bring some pain to some opposition teams for sure.
My last question: Stephen Smith or Virat Kohli, the better Test batsman?
Better Test batsman. That's not fair. I've seen him make hundreds on awful pitches. That's not fair. I think there's a lot more pressure on Kohli than there is on Steve Smith. I think what will help Steve Smith is the impressive form of Labuschagne Marnus that comes in will help him out without the pressure. Whereas Virat Kohli's always had Sharma and heaps of batsmen in the middle. Pujara, heaps of guys to help him out, Pujara and whatnot. But it's like Steve Smith in the past. If he gets out and we're finished, if Warner doesn't get some, so. And if Virat misses out, you always seem to punch out a good score, India, because your depth is so good. But different styles of play. If you're asking me which batsman do I prefer to watch, I prefer to watch Virat Kohli every day of the week compared to Steve Smith, who actually bats very similar. If you saw a lot of footage, and I've got some footage, a lot of footage of Bradman, very similar ways. Hits the ball a lot squarer, split grip. Play deep in the crease, whipping and hands, hits millions of balls to have it like that. 3% of his runs in Test cricket is actually hit straight down the ground or through mid-off. 3%. He hardly hits a ball to mid-off. And yet, why do they bowl back of a length to him? I still can't believe the team's got an amazing eye. He's a fine player. But who's better to watch? Give me a Kohli cover drive every day compared to a Steve Smith cover drive. But they're great players. So I love the fact that they're different and you can bat differently and to make good scores. And you scratch your head and say, gee, how does he get that ball from 2 feet outside off stump behind square on the leg side? But that's what Steve Smith does. That's his brilliance. So, and continually gets away with it and keeps doing it. So he's good to watch.
Wonderful. We've had a very, very, very interesting conversation with Professor Dino. He's spoken his heart how, a lot of youngsters who will see this program will definitely understand the basics of cricket, why Australia does well in all forms of cricket, why Virat Kohli he likes, and why Sharjeel Khan he feels is one of the players to watch out. Thank you very much, Dino. Wonderful talking to you.
Pleasure. Good talking. All the best. Take care, everyone. See you later.
Bye.